Merrimack TV is committed to our community. From gavel-to-gavel coverage of town and school board meetings to updates on town services and projects, we aim to keep you connected.
Good morning, I'm Kyle Fox, Public Works Director for the town of Merrimack.
Hi, I'm Diane Trippett. I'm the town clerk tax collector for the town of Merrimack.
I'm Captain Matt Tarleton with the Merrimack, New Hampshire Police Department.
And keep the public informed of every motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
And many moments, so you can be confident that we're here for you. Thanks for watching. Stay connected. Follow Merrimack TV on Facebook.
All right, whenever you guys are ready, thank you very much.
Thank you, Justin. Okay, it is 7 p.m. Let me call the planning board meeting to order for February 16th, 2021. Before we begin, let's go through our special COVID-related remote meeting protocol. Excuse me. As chair of the Merrimack Planning Board, due to the COVID-19 crisis and in accordance with Governor Sununu's Emergency Order Number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2024, this board is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the Governor's Emergency Order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is to confirm that we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We're utilizing the Zoom platform for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through the Zoom platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in the meeting through dialing either of the following phone numbers: 1-312-626-6799 or 1-929-205-6099, and entering meeting ID 915-6886-2365. This meeting may also be viewed on Merrimack TV Channel 20, on Comcast Cable, or Merrimack TV's webpage at http://merrimacktv.com. When the public comment is opened by the chair, press *9 on your phone to raise your hand in order to be recognized. Once called upon, press *6 to unmute your audio and present your testimony. We are providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of how to access this meeting using Zoom, and instructions are provided in the meeting agenda posted on the Town of Merrimack's website at www.merrimacknh.gov/planning-board. We are providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem, please email rprice@merrimacknh.gov or cwolfe, WOLFE, @merrimacknh.gov. We would adjourn the meeting if the public's unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting, we'll adjourn and reschedule it at that time. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Let's go through the order. Alistair.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. This is Alistair Mullins. I'm here in my study by myself, and there is nobody in the room with me.
Neil Anketel.
Neil Anketel, present in my office, and there's nobody here.
Bill Boyd.
Good evening. This is Town Councilor Bill Boyd. I am currently upstairs in my office. My daughter and my wife are at home, but they are in other parts of the house. I am able to listen to the audio and participate in and prepare for tonight's meeting.
Excellent. Nelson Disco.
I'm Nelson Disco. I'm at home alone at 10 Underwood Lane.
Excellent. This is Bob Best. I'm the chair. I'm home alone. Well, I'm in the room alone. Other family members are in the house and may cross to the room. And you also may see a cat climb on that window. 8 on the agenda, which is RCL Realty LLC. That applicant has requested a continuance from tonight's meeting to allow the board and the staff to take in the peer review and evaluate that and present that information to the board. So when we get to that item, I would anticipate the board would accept that continuance and we would continue it to our next meeting, which is March 2nd. So if anybody is interested in that item, you need not hang out for several hours just to hear us vote on a continuance. Tune back in on March 2nd. With that in mind, our next planning board meeting after tonight is March 2nd. And let me remind everybody who does address the board, make sure to provide your name and address so that we know who you are and we can identify you for the minutes. Remember to press *9 on your phone when prompted to raise your hand, and *6 will allow you to unmute yourself. We will remind you of that information at the appropriate time on the agenda. I believe that completes all of the opening items. 7 p.m. on March 2nd is our meeting, also by Zoom. With that, item 2 on our agenda is the Planning and Zoning Administrator's Report. Robert, is that yours or Casey's to deliver today?
I'll handle it. The only thing we have to offer tonight is that the Kodiak Vet site plan application is not of regional impact. We originally were recommending RCL was not regional impact, but due to the request for continuance, we'll hold that until the next time.
Okay. What's the will of the board with respect to the Kodiak Veterinary Clinic as not being a regional impact?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Think about Mr. Chairman.
I think Nelson was faster than you, Alistair.
Okay.
Okay, let's do a roll call vote on that. Alistair.
Aye, Mr. Chairman.
Neil Anketel.
I vote in favor.
Bill Boyd.
Boyd votes aye.
Nelson Disco.
Aye.
And then Bob Best votes aye. That's 5-0-0 to uphold the staff's recommendation that project is not of regional impact. Are there any other items on your list today, Robert?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Does any members of the board have any questions or items for the staff? Okay, then let's move ahead on our agenda to our next item, which is item 3. This is one that was continued from our previous meeting, which was affected by weather. Ron DuPont as the applicant and Strife LLC as the owner, continued review for consideration of a site plan to construct a 2,950 square foot mixed use professional office and 3 studio apartments in a building. The parcel is located at 406 Daniel Webster Highway in the C2 General Commercial Aquifer Conservation and Elderly Housing Overlay Districts. It is tax map 5D4, lot 99. It's case planning board 2021-2. It's continued from January 5th and postponed on February 2nd because of the weather. Robert or Casey, is there anything that we need to know before we hear from the applicant?
Just briefly. So, as you just mentioned, this applicant was last before the board on January 5th, due to the weather postponing the meeting last time around. There were 3 outstanding questions, which I'm sure the applicant will speak to tonight. One, the board had asked at the last meeting to confirm conformance with the proposed sign package with the zoning ordinance. But while that was not necessarily done, they don't necessarily have to do that as part of the site plan project process. They will do that with us afterwards when they apply for a sign permit. During the review process, but I believe the applicant may speak to that tonight. And the last point was the applicant was asked to follow up with Public Works about the drainage situation on East Chamberlain Road to see if there were any problems or areas of concern. When I checked with Public Works, that conversation did not appear to have taken place. However, they didn't indicate that there were any concerns at this time. So with that, I would, unless you have any other questions for me, I'd say you could turn it over to the applicant.
All right, who's here for the applicant today?
I have one question, please.
Sure.
I didn't quite hear what Bob said the first item was. I understood.
Sorry, Nelson. The first was the board had asked the applicant to confirm that their sign package was going to conform with the.
Oh, yes,
conform
yes,
with the zoning
okay,
ordinance.
got it, sorry, thank you.
No worries, yep.
Okay, so who is here for our applicant tonight?
All right, good evening. Matt Peterson here with Keach Nordstrom Associates, representing Strife LLC for the proposed development of 406 DW Highway. I think as was stated earlier, I think I'm probably getting too many meetings these days because I had a slightly different list than the three that were just listed there. I've got 8 comments or 6 or so that you asked for that I was going to walk through, and as well as those 3 that were just brought up from Robert. Really minor one, the first one here. You guys asked about this tree that was sitting right here at this location. I had a guy go out there and confirm today that tree is still there today. There was the one that had the red colors on it and stuff like that that you was asked for the last one. So that was just pretty minor.
Is that on your property or on the other property?
This is off our property, but one of the abutters said it was gone. I just confirmed it. Minor. So that was very minor.
Okay.
Next
so it is there and it's not yours.
It is there and it's not there. We didn't take it down.
Okay.
The second thing that I had on my list was the proposed height of the building. The height of the building is approximately 30 feet on this side here. And then with the parapet going up here, it's approximately 35 feet on this side here. You had also asked at that hearing what the other 2 sides were going to look, well, what the colors were going to look like, and then what the other sides were going to look like. So obviously that was the fake roof that we've talked about from the beginning here that we had on the front side there. So we kind of incorporated the 3 different sides and the look of the architectural for you guys on that there. As far as I could have sworn that these trees were on a plan that I reviewed on my markup, but when Robert told me this morning that they weren't there, I was very surprised. We proposed 6 trees or 6 shrubs up in this location here. I went with what was called basically just used as roadside streets as an arborvitae. I'm not a landscape guy, but I thought that made sense to kind of what we were talking about on the last plan. So I put those up here on the flat part that we have. If you take a look at our topo up in that area there, it gets flat right up in this area here. So that made the most amount of sense to me to get the most amount of height out of the landscape vegetation that we put up in there. Also on that plan, it was asked that all landscape areas be irrigated. So I added a note 10 to this landscape plan that also said that. That was one of the 8 that I had from the previous one from you guys. One that I did not change. I would say to the board tonight that I would work with staff during construction, but did not look at staggering these trees up in the front here. I've got the right of way that's in here, and I'm, as we go through construction with the sidewalk and stuff like that, if they'll let us as far as the signage package that Robert said, I don't know who the tenants are going to be. And you know as well as I do that whoever goes in there has their certain logo, their certain type and stuff like that. Obviously, all that information has to be submitted to Robert and staff before they build it. But we don't know who they are going to be at this time. So the sign package has not been put together. I don't envision any variances with this. It's a pretty visible site. We already the variance to build the building closer to the road. So that there was pretty clean. That's what my comments were. The drainage. Eight comments that I had from the last hearing. I apologize for that. But if that's something that Robert, has to put down for me to take care of as a condition of approval, that's fine. Again, we've been working with Don with this project from the very beginning. Get the variances. So this is something that we've been working with them for the last basically year and a half on this project to put together. I was going to keep this one short because I also had Normandy at the end, which no longer is at the end, and I thought it was going to be a long night, but I really will open it up for questions. I think we've kind of seen this one quite a bit. There's not a lot of changes. We did address all staff comments and Fuss O'Neill comments, got it back in January, so we're just waiting for a sign off from them that we've addressed everything correctly. And I'll open up for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt. Let me offer for the board's benefit that in our previous meeting on January 5th, we accepted the application as complete. We granted 4 waivers. There were no additional waivers offered at that time. It doesn't appear that there are any new waivers coming forward at this point. And so that would complete our business with respect to waivers. The board should plan its business tonight to discuss with the applicant, and we can open it up for public comment, and then consider whether the board's ready to make any final determination. So with that in mind, let's open up the floor for questions. Does anybody have any for the applicant?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Please have at it.
Just a couple of minor things. One thing we talked about that Matt didn't address right now, and it was left, I think, as a question, had to do with whether this building met the setbacks with the awning as shown. It was a question whether that awning protruded into the setback requirement, and if that was a problem. And it was kind of left hanging at the last meeting, I think. I don't think we resolved that, whether he needed to go back to the ZBA or whether he needs to eliminate the awning. Just a question. And the other question I had to do with the trees up on the point at the top of the hill, that I thought that one of the benefits of having trees up there was going to be to help the wind situation in the neighborhood, and that maybe 1 or 2 of those trees would be like full-size trees as opposed to little ones. I'll just leave that for everybody to discuss, but those are 2 things I remembered about this site.
Thank you. Let's take the awning question first. Matt, were you able to determine whether your awning is within the setback or not?
Yeah, so I had written from the last hearing that I needed to get a variance, and it was you guys wanted me to, you like the canopy, so to go apply for that variance. So one of these things would have to be that the canopy would be required to get a variance as part of this. And I had written this down to go apply for that, but I wanted to get through this process first here and make sure nothing else.
Understood. So your view is that the canopy does intrude into the setback. Robert, as the planning and zoning administrator, is it your interpretation that an awning would require a variance? As it a structure?
Yes, due to the definition of structure, anything attached to it, which is affixed to the ground permanently. So yes, the awning would require the variance.
Okay. I'm sorry to have put you through that, but I think the awning is worth it for the view of your building. So that answers that question. With respect to the trees at the top and the approach related to the neighbor's sense of things with the wind, I suspect there's not that much that any number of trees could do to stop the wind. But one of the things that I would note is, although the arborvitae that you showed in the pictures were relatively small, if it's not a dwarf arborvitae, they get pretty tall. And actually, you said you have 10 to 15, but certain varieties of arborvitae can get up to 50 feet tall. And I don't know which ones you got, but you want to speak to that at all, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, we called out that they would be bought at the 4 to 5 foot height with the full growth 10 to 15. If that needs to be increased slightly, that's not a major issue there. It's just what we put on the plan there. I'm not sure what how easily you can get them, and I don't know how quickly these arborvitaes grow. So I'm not trying to minimize it here. If you'd like us to get 10-foot ones to start with, a couple of them that are there, that's not a big deal.
I don't have a particular preference, because although I think it does help to screen and kind of make the appearance look well, I honestly don't believe that a handful of trees in that spot is going to significantly impact people's experience with the wind. But other board members, feel free to weigh in on that.
I'd agree with you, Mr. Chairman, but see what the others think.
Neil or Alistair, do you have any opinion on that? Bill?
Good to
Okay,
go. I like them.
Excellent. Okay, so we like the arborvitae and the mature height at 10 or 15. I don't remember what we've been told in the past about how fast they grow, but I think that generally those evergreens are in the like 1 foot per year kind of a approach. Other open items, Matt or Nelson, that you thought needed to be addressed?
That's all I had.
Okay. Neil or Bill, do you have any, or Alistair, do you have any other questions for the applicant?
My only concern, Mr. Chairman, is that if you look at compared with what was there a year ago, the bottom of East Chamberlain is becoming a somewhat busier area. And those trees that are on Daniel Webster Highway, I worry that they're going to shield the entrance to this new property and be a traffic hazard.
I think we addressed that with Matt pretty well last time, where the cars are well ahead of the trees, both on Chamberlain Road as well as coming out of the driveway. There's like a full car length
Yes,
past the trees.
I hear you, but I still have some concern.
Okay, fair enough.
And I understand the concern that's out there, and one of the reasons why I like the sidewalk back here, as we know, we have 20 feet of extra right of way here.
Yes.
So again, this is all pushed back 20 feet there. The edge of pavement's right here. So really open, which is nice for the whole entrance coming up this way and for East Chamberlain. So I agree with you, Alistair, making sure that's open, but because this property of the 20 is pushed back and really opens that up nicely.
All right, I'll thank you for that and accept that what you're saying is going to work.
All right, other comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman, Matt had indicated that he was amenable to adding an additional condition regarding drainage and working with DPW on the drainage piece. I certainly would like that to be a part of the one of the conditions for conditional approval.
Okay, if Matt's amenable to it, I certainly have no objection to it. Are you speaking of the drainage from East Chamberlain Road?
Correct, that's correct.
Okay. It certainly wouldn't hurt to have that condition there, although the indication from Robert at the introduction is that DPW doesn't see any drainage problems on East Chamberlain Road that would require any remedy.
Okay.
But that means that the condition itself won't hurt the applicant at all to have there. It's just belts and suspenders to make sure everybody checks.
Correct.
Covers those issues. So anything else that anybody wants to address with the applicant? All right, let's take the opportunity to hear public testimony. Are there any abutters or citizens who wish to weigh in? Justin, can you help me spot raised hands, because I don't have all of the people on my screen at one time?
Yes, will do. You're just going to have to hit *9 if they want to speak.
*9 to raise your hand, and then we'll tell you the secret code to unmute yourself. Any hands up? Going once, going twice?
I see none.
Okay, let's close the public hearing. Board members, if you have no other further discussion with the applicant, it's appropriate to consider whether we are prepared to take final action.
Real quick before we do, Mr. Chair.
Yes, of course.
I failed to mention the applicant. There was a comment I think made in the initial review about the potential need for a loading space on the site. So they have submitted a waiver request from that requirement to address that potential conflict or issue, because they didn't necessarily provide a loading space on this property.
It's a loading space for some kind of material or for people to get in and out of their cars in a spot, or
Like a delivery space, I believe.
Okay. All right, so we have an additional waiver to consider. The applicant's proposing a waiver of which section of our requirement requires the loading space?
Section 3.11 parking subsection A.1. So it's 3.11.A.1.
.A.1. Okay. What's the will of the board with respect to the waiver of the requirement for a loading space under 3.11.A.1?
Move approval.
Motion and a second by Councilor Boyd. Councilor Boyd, which of the two statutory criteria underpins your motion?
The hardship.
Okay, that is the first one.
Correct.
Strict conformity would pose an unnecessary hardship to the applicant, and the waiver would not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulations. Okay, excellent. Any discussion on that waiver request? Then let's vote on that. Let's see, Nelson, I see you first on my screen.
I don't see a second.
Oh, Nelson second.
Thank you.
Now vote aye on this motion.
Councilor Boyd.
Boyd votes aye.
Neil Incatel.
Vote aye.
Alistair Milnes.
I vote aye.
And Bob Best votes aye as well. That's 5-0-0 to grant that waiver. Is the board prepared to take final action on this application?
I believe so.
Would someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we give conditional final approval for this application.
All right, subject to all the conditions in the staff's memo. Is there a second for that?
Conditions for them.
Second.
Second by Neil Anketel. If there's no further discussion, then let's do a roll call vote. Alistair, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Neil Anketel, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Bill Boyd?
Boyd votes aye.
Nelson Disco?
Aye.
Bob Best votes aye. 500 to grant conditional final approval. Matt, thank you for the presentation. My compliments to the applicant. I think it's neat to see a little bit of creative architecture, a little bit of mixed use in this area where we've designed a master plan to support it. And I think it'll be a neat one to get developed. I hope you get some cool tenants that people are interested in doing business with.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. It's been a good year. We've worked hard to try and come up with something to fit on this piece well. So I appreciate that. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item on our agenda is item 4. Maria either Monsalve, if I said that right, as the applicant, and Alva Hare as the owner. Review for a conditional use permit under section 2.02.1.a.2.f. What the heck is all of that? Of the zoning ordinance for a home occupation to permit a childcare business. The parcel is located at 33 Bedford Road in the R1 Residential by Soils Aquifer Conservation and Wellhead Protection Area. Tax map 6D, lot 239. It's case planning board 2021-4, and it was postponed from our February 2nd meeting because of weather. Robert or Casey, is there anything that we need to know before we hear from the applicant?
No, not too much. I just want to emphasize again, like you said, that this is an application for a home occupation for a childcare business. I'm going to let the applicant do the presentation and I will interject as I need to.
Excellent. Who's here for the applicant?
That's me.
Excellent. Introduce yourself and tell me your address.
My name is Alva Hare. I'm Maria's husband. We live at 33 Bedford Road. We just purchased this in November. The property had a doctor's office in part of the house for decades. So that part of the house it's very closed off from the rest of the house. We want to update it. It's not really usable at the moment, but my wife wants to look toward a future of using that someday. Right now, she just wants to be licensed, and we're not sure which part of the house we'll use. It's a big house, and she's looking for a license for up to 6 kids, which is the lowest level of daycare license. And we being that it used to be, it had a small professional business in it. So we've got parking for like 10 cars aside from our own. Lots of different exits and entrances. So she wants to just start with the smallest one. And everyone has said, get approved first, and then we can go to the next level, which is get our approval from the police and from the fire department and from the child office, I guess you call it, or something. There's all these offices to be a licensed daycare. And she doesn't want to have a lot of kids right now. We're probably going to have like 3 or 4, which honestly, under state law, you could probably have 3 kids and not even do anything, but she wants to be working towards being licensed. So the lowest level of license is for up to 6 kids. I'm trying to renovate the office right now, which is again closed off from the house, and maybe someday that'll be brought in, and we'll kick up the business a little bit, to the next level. So that's where we're at.
Okay. Thank you for that introduction, and certainly wish all the best to your wife as she proceeds down this path. Let's see if we can go through our regulatory requirements and discuss the items with you that we need to address in order for us to vote. I agree with you that the state regulation is the first level is up to 6 kids. And so even if you're aiming for 2 or 3 or 4, we should certainly go with 6 because that's what that corresponds with the state's review. And that makes a lot of sense to stay in lockstep with them. Our regulation allows up to 500 square feet of the existing living area to be used for a home occupation business like this. And I understand from the staff, you haven't indicated which part of your house you're going to use for your business. And recognizing that nobody's going to come in and see where the kids have wandered through your house as you're watching them.
Well,
are you able to give us? Are you able to give us a sense of which part of the house you want to use for the childcare business?
So we have an enormous great room that we use as our living room, and then it's a large house. It's a very big house. It's if you count the office, it's about 5,000 square feet. And it's too big for us. We can't afford it actually, but so that's why she's got to get some kind of income going. So we do have this sort of a large living room that she was thinking if she gets started before we can have the office presentable to show to the health department. And I can talk about what's going on in there. If she gets started, it would be probably in that big living room area. Maybe possibly the great room too. That's going to be, that's less than 500 square feet, but it's probably about 500 square feet, about that size. So we've got room inside the house to carve out for this. And if we get started inside the house, I suppose I could, send you guys a floor plan and show you what it is, that we're actually planning.
Thank you for the explanation on that. Let me interrupt and just say I misread what the staff had written in their memo, and actually this is not an applicable requirement for you. So as long as the board has a comfort level that you've got enough space for the 6 kids, then we can move on to the next criteria. We don't need to have you designate a 500-foot space. If that works for you.
It's a big house, and we got plenty of room to do it. So
excellent. That makes sense to me. One of the things
and
that
to throw in there, she was licensed in Massachusetts for many years. So to start over in New Hampshire, it has its own unique rules, of course, and we'll have to follow, but she kind of knows how the game is played with getting the license and adhering to the rules, because she's done it for maybe not 10 years, but she's done it for quite a while.
Excellent. I think that if you can make it in Massachusetts with their regulatory environment, you probably find New Hampshire fairly hospitable.
Those people are insane down there. We had to go.
I've noticed that. So one of the things that I noticed from the aerial view of your property is the swimming pool. Is the swimming pool going to be part of your daycare business or used at all for it ever?
So the aerial picture probably doesn't show it yet, but just before the freeze hit, we had a contractor come in here and do 360 fencing completely around the pool, 4 feet high. So that, I believe, would meet any criteria for having the pool fenced off. The backyard is going to have playground equipment next year. We've already bought some of it. We can't put it in yet because we want to have the landscaping done, and we're going to buy the rubber mulch to go under the swing and all of that. We're going to do that like a professional grade play area, and we've spent the extra money for stuff that we know would be safe. We didn't get some crap, and it's actually going to be quite nice. We've got some little play houses. We're going to build a little pretend village out there too, so that's going to be cute. So the yard, will be used as a play area, and the child office and the health department, whoever, will have to be shown around before we can actually take the kids out there.
Excellent. And I appreciate the fence around the pool. I think it's important for safety. Is there any intention that kids that are in the daycare service would ever use the pool or swim or have that be part of it?
No,
Okay.
we're not going down that road. I guess it's possible people could do that, but no.
Okay, so our regulations permit it up to one commercial vehicle. And I don't think that you're going to have any commercial vehicles with this business, are you? No.
I don't project having any commercial vehicles, certainly not now. If we do completely finish the office and come back for a second round of this and go for the approval of the up to 13 kids, which my wife, is thinking of doing, we might rethink that, but I don't know. I mean, we're not going to be in the business of hauling these kids, and their parents will drop them off, and we really don't need it to pick up groceries because we got a couple, decent cars to pick up stuff. So I doubt we ever will have a commercial vehicle. If we do, it certainly wouldn't be greater than one.
Excellent. Perfect.
And not for this first round either. That's for the future, if we grow the business to the next level of daycare, which is more complicated.
Understood. Okay. Are you going to have any employees that don't live at your house?
Again, not for this first round. No, that would be us coming back for, the one for up to 13 kids. We're going to have to provide an engineering assessment and all of this stuff. So you'll be seeing us before that ever happens. For the first round where we're at with 6, the goal is not to pay someone else. We just need to generate a little extra income right now to generate some money to actually renovate that office, because it's
Understood.
It's yucky.
Okay, so no employees.
No.
Right now at this level. Is there going to be any kind of a sign or advertisement on the home or in the yard for telling people that you're there, or is it just your customers are going to know you're there because they've built a
So the doctor's office has a signpost roughly the size of what you would see a real estate sign hanging off of. We've considered using that. It has lights that can come on at night, that point directly at the little sign. We may or may not use that. My wife was wanting to get a 6x2 banner printed for the first couple weeks so people can see us and hang that on the side of the house. But we don't want that kind of thing on our house probably permanently, and we would transition to that signpost that's been up all these years for the doctor's office.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understood. So the requirement for the signpost is 2 square feet, which is probably what's been there because it was brought under the same regulation. In terms of the banner as a temporary sign kind of a thing, I'm not sure how that falls within the regulation. Just work with the staff and make sure that you've talked to them about it and that they're okay with it.
She also wants to get, for a few days, one of those air blower wavy guys like at the used car lot. I was like, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, hopefully the town planning office will say we can't do that.
I
can blame it on you.
I honestly don't know what they'll say, and I think that if it's a proposal for a day or two, that's one thing. And I don't speak for them, so I don't know what they'll say. But just remember to respect the neighborhood and the neighbors and the dignity of the rest those folks as they're going about their day. And maybe the flag guy isn't what they're looking for. Neil's a big fan of the flag guy. He puts it up for our 4th of July thing every year for the Rotary Club. So he knows all about where to get that guy. So that's signage. Storage of items outdoors. And I think that certainly your play area in the back isn't considered storage because those are structures. I don't know if there's a amount of toys and tricycles and things that kids play with that would be stored outside, but the regulation doesn't permit that. So those loose items would have to be, you know, brought inside of a shed or some structure to be at a site.
No,
You know that.
I don't anticipate. So the area that will be the playground has a 9-foot privacy fence around it. No one's ever going to see what's inside there. The only place that could be seen is our front yard, and that's not going to be. We're going to have that looking nice. We want our house to look nice. The driveway, there's not going to be stuff there. So, and so I just, it's just a thing that's not going to happen. We're not going to have tricycles and things in the driveway. So, but you know, we have kids. It would not be, we have children ourselves. We have 2. So, I mean, it would not be uncommon to drive by and see a tricycle in the driveway once in a while, but we're not going to be storing things.
Now, understood. And nobody's going to get on your case about your own kids' toys and things in the yard. There is a provision in our regulation that deals with deliveries, and you already talked about with commercial vehicles that you don't really have much of a need to go and get things or have them delivered, but has to be step van or small vehicles like that, like the Amazon vehicle or something. No truck deliveries to a home occupation business. Not that I think that you would have any, but I just wanted to mention that.
I don't anticipate ever, even if we grow to the up to 13 kids, we're not going to, you know, that's in the future, but that's still this. We're not going to have a semi showing up here, a tractor trailer. That's cuckoo. No, that's never going to happen.
Excellent choice. You mentioned that you've got more than 10 parking spaces on your property. Parking is the next thing on the list. I can certainly see from the aerial photograph that there's quite a bit. I don't know exactly where because the trees covered a little bit, but it seems like there's ample if we're talking about less than 6 kids. Is there lighting in the area of your driveway or the parking where if kids were being picked up at 5 o'clock in the wintertime when it gets dark at noon, that kids could safely get between cars and make sure that that's going to happen?
There's let's see, 1, 2, 3. If I wanted to, there's 4 double spotlights that, you know, we buy the LED 100-watt equivalent spotlight. So there would be 8 of those if we wanted to use all 8 of them. They can be either motion sensor or just on at night. And then we've got a lamp post by the front driveway, and then lamps on the front. So basically the entire perimeter of the house could be well lit.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say to that, what are your hours of operation going to be for your kids being dropped off and picked up?
My wife does not like to, so you have to accommodate people going to work a little bit. Someone, you know, may want to drop off at 6:45, but then, you know, we want them out of here by 6 o'clock at night. So it's basically business hours plus a little bit of extra because people are commuting, you know. Drop them off here and go. We're not keeping kids on the weekends. We're not keeping kids till 7 o'clock at night. It's not long-term babysitting. It's daycare while you're at work. That's all it is. So
understood. Okay, so that covers the items that our regulations lay out for us to have a discussion with you about. Do any members of the board have any items on their mind that they'd like to speak to the applicant about? Nelson, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I'm interested in the arrival and removal of kids, the drop off and in and out of this. As I'm seeing only this picture, you know, that we have, that's rather than a plan. The driveway, as I understand it, is on the east side of the property line. It goes in and then you drop the kids off in the back. And I should say, where do your kids drop off? And how wide is that driveway? Is this possible for people to go, to pass each other going in and out? And well, tell me about your plan for receiving and removing kids. I know
So the as far as coming into the house, if we were to have the office ready, the office has its own entryway that goes to that east side driveway. There is entryway in back, and then there's the entryway along the sidewalk along the front, right along Bedford Road. You'll see a sidewalk that sort of runs parallel to Bedford Road across the front of the house, and a front door. So if we were to choose the living room, great room area for our daycare, they could use that front door. We could use the back door. If we had the office ready, we could use the side door of the office. So there's 3 entryways that they could come in. And then there's several exits that go into the yard, because there's plenty of exits from the house in case there's a fire or something, right? So exits that aren't probably visible to you. So depending on which one we use, we may use that front exit where there's the driveway running parallel, or the sidewalk running parallel to Bedford Road, or maybe they can come in the back door, which is sort of by the garage there. That's, I guess, up in the air, which one we use. If we use the office, it has its own door. The driveway would be just wide enough, I think, for 2 cars to pass each other.
What are you talking about? I'm not clear where you are. And the front of the house faces Bedford Road, right?
Right.
And is that where the entrance is?
There's an entrance on the front of the house facing Bedford Road. There's an entrance on the side. There's 2 entrances on the side facing the driveway.
Okay, now which one are you going to use? You gotta have a plan here that it works for everybody getting in and out. I'm not seeing it.
So hang on a second. Let me see if I could help steer this. I think, Nelson, you're talking about a driveway entrance, and it seems like the applicant's talking about the doorways into the house. And maybe they're related to each other because the 2 got to come together in some way. But I just wanted to make sure everybody was talking about the same thing.
I was talking about doors. Yeah.
Yep. There appears to be one driveway along the side of the property that goes around the side of the house to the back. And there's sort of a wider area to the back. So let's just deal with cars and driveways. A car could pull in, go to that back area, park and take their kid to whichever door they need to go to, and then turn around and go drive out forwards out of that driveway. Does all that make sense?
We could have about 5 cars, and there would be room for them to turn around.
Okay, understood.
If we had 10 cars all parked at the same time, I think there would still be room for them to turn around if they were careful. With 5 cars parked, it would be pretty easy for them to turn around and go out. So the entrance of the driveway, if you are looking at, so there's Bedford Road. The house is facing Bedford Road. On the side of the house that's closer to the highway, that direction toward the highway exit.
Yep.
That's the side of the house that the driveway meets Bedford Road. And at the mouth of the driveway, it's probably just wide enough for 2 cars to pass each other, but I don't think that would ever need to happen. Because you can turn around. Plenty of room to turn around back there.
Yeah.
I think 1 car at a time is okay, right? They just have to look as they're driving out like you would normally do.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of, if people are arriving at the same time, you may occasionally have somebody leaving when someone's trying to come in, but people will figure that out. And if there is room enough for them to pass each other, that certainly covers it. So that's driveways. And then you're not sure which of the 3 doorway entrances you may use because we're not sure yet what part of the house we're going to use. If it's the front door that faces Bedford Road, you mentioned that there's a sidewalk that people could use near Bedford Road and then leading up to the door. Is that right?
Well, there's the sidewalk right along the side of the house that runs parallel with Bedford Road, and that leads right to the front door steps. And they could come in the front door. There's a nice big living room there that is probably going to be, if we're using the main house, that's going to be where they go. They come in, there'll be arts and crafts areas there. And then there's like 2 rooms there. We'll have to we might use one as a dining room, in which case we would use the great room and the living room. But you know, once you guys approve this, she's going to go about licensing. And if during that time I can whip the office into shape, pull down all of the yucky old wallpaper, pull out the nasty, there's sinks in every room, which is just, you know, nobody wants a sink in every single room, and they're like laboratory sinks. During the time she's getting the license, we may decide that the office is now ready, and that would be the space that the child office looks at and approves. So the child office is going to have to approve the space, and the fire department's going to have to approve which space we use. I don't know if I'm going to have the budget to get all that done, so it may be the living room and the great room.
Yep,
in which
I understand.
case,
that's why I was going through all the 3 entrances, just to know how pedestrians would move between the cars and the entrances. So thank you. You explained the front one. The middle one is the one that would lead into the doctor's office if that was ready, and that just adjoins right to your parking area. Is that correct?
yes, it's yeah.
And then the rear door that you said is also a possibility. Where does that join with respect to the parking lot or parking area that you have in the back?
It's going in the garage entrance.
Okay.
So
when I look at this aerial photograph, it looks like there's a white colored vehicle parked back there in the back part of the lot. Do you have the picture? This one?
Yeah, that's the only picture we've got.
I know, but Mr. Hare, do you have that picture? Hold it up.
Okay. Let me put my glasses on. This is doubly bad. Can they display it, or is that?
Robert, do you have the ability to put that on screen?
It's a printout of GIS, but I can pull up aerial real quick.
Yeah, see if you can do that. Anyway, I just wanted to understand where is that garage entrance that you mentioned? Because when you say it's the garage, I've never been to your house. I don't know where your garage is.
I don't know where the great room is, and I don't know where the living room is.
I didn't know that this. I just so I had never heard back from you, and I called the planning office today, and they said, "Oh, we forgot to send you the email." So I got the email invitation to this with all the concerns and things today, and I didn't want to miss it.
You're doing fine. You're doing fine.
I can provide you with, you know, some drawings, and
we'll just talk our way through it. It won't be that difficult. You're doing fine. We just want to know exactly. It's really not so much that we have concerns about which part of the house you pick, as much as we know that pedestrians can get safely from your driveway into your house.
That's my concern. And the kids can get in and out safely, and the parents can stop, park their car, let the kid out, etc. And the kid can safely get to wherever he's going in.
Robert, can you zoom one more click in? That's good. Okay. So we do have a lot of parking spaces back there.
I don't see a car.
There isn't in this one. This is a different aerial photograph. So let's use what we've got for landmarks here on this one. It looks like there's a fence that joins the back of the house at the top. Robert, can you point to that with the cursor? Right there. Is that nearby an entrance into your garage or doorway you were talking about?
So keep going towards the dock, So not towards the yard. Keep going that direction. Yeah. Yeah, along that, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. That's an entrance to the garage there.
Okay.
All right. So I wish I could take control of this mouse.
No, it's okay.
The trees
that's the back entrance.
The trees are obscuring quite a bit of parking. So anyways, keep hugging the perimeter of the house and going that direction. There, stop. Yeah, that would be around there would be the entryway to the doctor's office, that little roof sticking out. And your mouse was over top of the sidewalk steps leading up into that foyer, small foyer that leads into the doctor's office. All right.
And now I can see the sidewalk in the front going from the driveway across
that
the front.
sidewalk. Stop. There's the steps that go into the front of the house. So if you just move the cursor a little bit farther over top that roof.
Yep.
That is where the living room is.
In great room.
Okay. In that square sort of where that front facet of the roof is there on the first floor that's actually go over to the other roof, go to your left right there. That facet of the roof right there is mostly covering what would be the living room. So they walk in and there's living room right there. There's a bathroom near there. Plenty of room for the little kiddies to play, which if you keep going to the other side of the roof, that's where a dining room is. And so those two areas could easily be turned into one big, nice little play area for kids to have some.
So our focus is on the exterior features, and I'm satisfied. I don't know if Nelson is, but I am satisfied that your parking areas have ways that pedestrians can approach the doorways, all three doorways, in ways that were designed for pedestrians. Nelson, do you have questions about that?
Well, I guess it'll work if the driveway is wide enough for two cars to pass. So the car going out, or the guy who stops to let his kid out in the front isn't blocking the other person from coming in or whatever. I was just concerned mostly with the safety of getting kids in and out of this building.
Yeah.
How you were planning to do it. It sounds like you haven't really thought it all the way through yet.
Well, except that they could come and park and have plenty of ways to get in. Just don't block the driveway. That'll be part of the plan.
14 and a half feet, which is the width there, is probably for a very skilled driver enough room for two cars to pass, but not your average driver in a 14-foot way. But anyway, I think that you're right, that people will block the driveway the first time and then you'll tell them not to do that anymore, and then they won't do that anymore.
So if you see the green line, it comes in along the side of the driveway and then goes over. There's a lot that the parking lot also goes into that shape. You can right there. Yeah. That's all room for cars to park. It's got the berm so that they can't keep going into the woods. So it's got parking berms there, and so they have easy access to come around the front or the side or the other side. As long as they just don't block the way, I think that there's, and I'll have to keep after it with the snowblower in the wintertime. That's going to be the caveat. That's on me.
Okay, understood. Nelson, do you have further questions about the parking?
I guess I've asked all the questions.
Okay. Does anyone else have questions about anything to do with the application? Neil.
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I was just curious. This was previously approved for the dentist office. So
or doctor's office.
Or doctor's office. I'm curious about the traffic in and out. I think kind of how Nelson feels is, first off, that doesn't seem wide enough for cars to get back and pass each other on the way in and out.
It isn't.
It's not really. So I'm just concerned about how many, the trips during drop off and pickup, they generally come in around the same time and they leave around the same time. That could be, it just seems like trouble at that spot. I
Well,
don't,
we're not talking about a dozen kids or anything. There's a handful. He's talking about 4 or 5, and he's allowed for up to 6. And
so would that have to change, like if he goes in to the next level where he can have 13 kids?
So
he'll have to have some
if
site
it's
plan review.
13 kids, it is absolutely going to be in what was the old office, which means that they're going to park in that parking spot right across the driveway from the doctor's office entrance, and that's how they're going to get in and out. So with
that part's
10
clear to us.
kids,
The
I don't
question that we're
expect
having
having
is,
all 10 cars there at the same time.
Yeah, we got you. We're just looking. We're thinking about a different question. The part of the driveway that leads to the road isn't wide enough for a incoming and an outbound car to pass each other, and I don't know that that's the worst such situation in the world. I think people would figure it out. But ultimately, if the planning board wanted to put some kind of a requirement on that, frankly, at this point, or even in the next level of review,
I mean, it's
could
luckily
say,
it's New Hampshire, so people use turning signals. It's not like
Somewhat.
Massachusetts.
Yeah, somewhat. We do, somewhat we do. At any rate, there's probably also some regulations that limit how wide a driveway throat can be, and that may be why it is what it is. But anyway, yeah, there's the potential for there to be incoming and outbound cars, and I think Robert was able with the site viewer to estimate its measurement at about 14.5 feet. A car is about 6.5, 7 feet wide with its mirrors, depending on what it is, a pickup truck or a minivan or something like that. It's probably a little bigger. So, that's why I said if you had skilled drivers that knew exactly the dimensions of their mirrors, they could get by, but probably not your average driver is going to try and pass somebody in that section. So somebody will have to take a peek out and see who's on their way out before they turn in, or see who's on their way in before they pull out. And, as we've learned with these things, when you have half a dozen or 8 people coming and going over the course of half an hour, they almost never actually encounter each other.
Yeah, would it be maybe good to mount one of those dome mirrors out there so that depending on which way you're coming out the driveway, you can see the nearest lane oncoming traffic?
Yeah, I don't know that.
That's a little bit of a different issue, but yeah,
Yeah,
that's a possibility. Councilor Boyd, I think you were trying to work a question in here.
What are the hours of operation?
So my wife doesn't like to go too early, so I'm guessing it's going to be 6:45 in the morning and 6 o'clock at night, and those are the stragglers. We want them. She doesn't want them here before 7. She doesn't want them staying here late. But sometimes people call up and say, I can't make it till 6:30, and you're kind of stuck with the kid. We don't want them after that. This is not something that's running into the middle of the night, or so it's going to be business hours with a little bit of extra so people can commute. And that's it.
In Casey's memo, the project description states that you're going to propose to accommodate 2 to 3 children. Is that correct?
My wife's probably going to start with that. The license to go get the license for the first level is up to 6. So that's up to her and which part of the house we're in, when we start, and how soon she gets her license. If we're starting in the dining room area, coming in the front, I don't think she's going to go up to 6. If I can have the office whipped into shape in time for the child office to look at that part of the house, she could go up to 6 there.
Is it fair to say you're not going to have 6 kids arriving at 6:45 in the morning? Is that correct?
That's not going to happen.
Okay.
That's not going to happen.
Thank you, Mr. Hare. I appreciate it.
Yep,
Thank you,
now
Mr.
you're on the
Chairman.
right question. Thank you, Councilor Boyd. Other questions or comments? Are there any abutters or interested citizens who wish to weigh in? Justin, can you spot any hands raised?
I don't see any right now.
I do not either. Going once, going twice. We'll close the public hearing on this. Board members, do you have any other questions that you would like to raise?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm just curious, why don't we have a print now or something that we can see more, a better idea as to what his thought is?
It's a conditional use permit and not a site plan or subdivision. So that's why there's not a plan. They've got to meet certain criterias.
That level of plan is not required for a home occupation level. If and when they expand to the 13 child license, that would require site plan review, and you'd get all sorts of detail on that.
Yeah, can I just jump in? Is that like I said, I hadn't gotten an email, and I called, and it was only 3 hours ago that 4 hours ago maybe that I was like, yeah, there's a meeting tonight. I don't know how to get in. And Rhonda's like, oh yes, oh, I forgot to send you. So I would have had, something more to show you. I would not have. It's kind of amorphous. I'm waving my hands about this room and that room. I've got these hopes of being able to fix the office, which requires money that I don't have. And so there was a lot of hand waving and a lot of fuzziness. I would have been a little bit better prepared. But we don't have the time to wait till the next meeting. So I just had to jump in and come with empty hands.
You're doing fine. And in the context of a home occupation, it's not that unusual to have something very much like this. Board members, do you have any other questions, or is there anyone with some potential to make a decision?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Merrimack Planning Board grant the conditional use permit for the child home occupation with the following conditions that are outlined in Assistant Planner Casey Wolf's memo to you and us dated January 28, 2021.
Is there a second for Councillor Boyd's motion?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Alistair seconds it. Further discussion? Then let's, go ahead, Neil.
I'm sorry, just a question about the play area in the back. It's right again, the play area in the back, is that going to be right behind that big fence that you said, the stockade fence?
It's inside the 9-foot tall privacy fence. The safety issue that we saw that jumped out is going to be the pool, which we have already made the effort. It's 360 degrees encased in a 4-foot fence that children can't get through. So we're going to have landscapers come in to get, they had stacked up firewood here. That has to go. The child office won't like that. There's a basket case BMW motorcycle behind the shed. That's got to go. If anybody wants it, you can have it. So we've got, these things that we have to address before the child office comes here, because she knows, having had a license before, what they're going to pick on. So yes, it's the area behind the house surrounded by a 9-foot fence. It includes the pool, but the pool is 360 degree fenced. And we're in the process of having people come here and take care of little issues that are going to be safety issue gigs when the child office comes and looks at it. We're going to get out ahead of that.
And that's kind of what I was leading towards, is the safety issue. Is there any curbing or anything like that along the fence where people will be parking in? Like, it looks like the parking lot goes right up against the fence. So if kids are playing on the other side of the fence, I didn't know if there's any plan to put any curbing in, or anything, not necessarily curbing, or just something else in front of there to protect that area from people driving through it.
Well, they'd have to crash through the fence, and they'd have to drive across about 6 or 7 feet of yard to get to the fence.
Okay.
Now there is an area where the fence has a double wide gate where we will be able to get the landscaper's truck back there to haul stuff out and haul that junk motorcycle out of there and stuff like that. But when that gate closes, an ordinary car is going to have to drive across lawn and then crash into this 9-foot fence. I don't think it's that likely. You know, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
If you once you park back there, I would put parking berms, but then that sort of blocks that utility entrance into the backyard for when we did want to bring a truck back there.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
All right. Other comments or questions? There is a motion. Oh, Nelson, go ahead.
I just had one more. We didn't talk about sewer here. Are you on public sewer or is this septic?
It's a septic system. It's I saw the specs. Apparently, I was told it's large, but I don't know. It was serviced last 2 years ago, and the people that own the house were barely here. I'm assuming it's pretty much empty, but I got to have it checked because who knows when someone's selling a house if they're actually telling the truth. And you know, so I will have to have it emptied, but
Yeah,
I don't
might have to
understand.
look into it when you go up to 10 people or 13 or whatever your max number was on the other end. You may have to check it. I don't imagine you'd have a problem at this point. It was made for a fairly large single family home. But when you get up to 13 visitors, you may have something to look at.
Yeah.
Just for
we'll have to keep after it and keep it emptied. I think it's going to be that's one of the costs of doing business. Increased water use is going to be one of the costs of doing business. And you know, hopefully we can strike a balance where we still make a tiny profit.
Yeah, a possibility. I mean, your doctor's office may well have used as much water as a daycare with a handful of kids. Anyway,
somebody just popped a message up.
Yeah,
this use is way less than, and I couldn't read it. It went away.
Way less than a doctor's office is what it reads.
Yeah. I agree
Yeah,
with
well,
that.
that's true because they were putting stuff down the drain nonstop with all those sinks. There was a sink in every room. So
No question. Okay. So there is a motion on the floor that's been seconded. Is there further discussion?
Move the question, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. Let's vote. Alistair, how do you vote?
I vote aye, Mr. Chairman.
Neil, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Bill Boyd, how do you vote?
Boyd votes aye.
Nelson Disco, how do you vote?
Aye.
Bob Best votes aye as well. 5-0-0. So you are approved. You'll get a letter from the town with the conditions to meet that provide you all that information. If you have questions about that, you can contact Robert or Casey at their office and get their help with that. And good luck and welcome to the town. And you did a good job for pinch hitting with only a little bit of notice.
yeah, so I just in closing, I guess I would say is that our intention from the start was to do a legal licensed daycare that meets all criteria and coordinates with the town. So you'll be hearing from us if there's anything weird or anything going on. We are going to definitely just be an open book. That's our intention.
Excellent. Good to hear. Okay, our next item on our agenda. I'm sorry, Bill, what'd you say?
Welcome to Merrimack.
Yes, absolutely. Welcome to Merrimack. Item 5 on our agenda is Granger Revocable Trust as the applicant and owner. Review for acceptance and consideration of final approval for a 2-lot subdivision. The parcel is located at 225 Natticook Road in the R1 Residential by Soils District, Aquifer Conservation and Wellhead Protection Area. Tax map 2B, lot 34. It's case planning board 2020-11. Robert or Casey, is there anything that we need to know before we hear from the applicant?
Not too much. I just wanted to remind the board that you have seen this project on your agenda before. This project is a 2-lot subdivision that was on your agenda several times from June through November 2020. They eventually asked for an indefinite continuance so that they could go to the zoning board to seek a variance to create a lot with only 150 feet of frontage when they needed 250 feet of frontage. They did receive that variance in December, so now they're back before you to complete their subdivision before the planning board.
All right, excellent. Who's here from the applicant?
Hi, Mr. Chairman, Tom Carr from Meridian.
Hi, Tom. Thank you for the feedback on that last application, by the way.
No
as well.
problem at all. So
Beating a
yes,
dead
I'm here
horse on
tonight to present the Granger Revocable Trust subdivision. Again, we were here, as staff said, 8 or 9 months ago. After we had submitted the application through departmental review, we had figured out that the sewer that's in front of the lot had a moratorium on it. So although it was in the R4 district by default, it defaulted to the R1 district because a hookup was not available. We spent several months pursuing the Nashua Sewer District because this sewer line is under their jurisdiction to try to get a waiver or permission for one single hookup for this lot. We were unsuccessful in obtaining that. So we did go to the zoning board and get a variance for 150 feet of frontage, which would be the R4 district requirement. If I could maybe share my screen at this point.
Yeah, Robert, can you give him, or whoever's got the ability to do that, give him permission to share screen?
I believe you have that permission.
Does everybody see this plan?
Not yet.
No?
It's not.
All right. Let's see.
Now it's sharing something.
Okay.
It looks like your Zoom screen, though. Your
It
Zoom
is.
scheduling.
Where's my plan?
Take your time. We'll get there.
Okay, how's that?
That's good. Now we got a plan.
Okay, so it is a subdivision of tax lot 2B, lot 34, and apparently, according to staff report, we need to revise the remainder lot from 34-1 to another lot number, which is no issue. So again, we had assumed because there was sewer in Noticook Road, we were in the R4 district. And again, based on departmental review, we found out that wasn't available to hook up. So we had a non-sufficient frontage lot here. Now, looking at sheet 2, you can see where the existing house is here. We couldn't possibly make the required frontage for the remainder parcel. This lot 2B34 is being subdivided off for a family member that has needs for residence, and the Granger Revocable Trust is trying to provide for that family member on a standalone lot that family member can have in perpetuity. So ultimately, we did go to the zoning board. We got a variance for 150 feet of frontage here. Going back to the cover page, we do have 150 feet of frontage here, 50 here, 50 here, and 50 here. So cumulatively, there's 300, but the contiguous is 150. We've done full boundary survey. The topographic survey is LiDAR, which we have down here, LiDAR topography. We did on-site wetland delineations, primarily because we had to do a full boundary survey on this property because it had not been surveyed before, and we couldn't come before the planning board without a precise boundary survey. We had recommended that they consider doing a wetland delineation so they could see what the property had to offer and what the limitations were. So we did that. The Grangers have no intention of proceeding with the development here. However, based on the location, ultimately, we're quite sure that something will come down the road with that. So we had been through this presentation before, Mr. Chairman. I think probably the planning board remembers this, and I want to thank Mr. Price and the planning staff for working through our trials and tribulations with Nashua month after month, trying to get some response from them, which never happened. Robert reached out to me again and again to find out what the status of it was. And, you know, we've been, this whole COVID-19 thing has created a big surge in land development and housing needs. So I wasn't quite on the ball with keeping in touch with Robert. So Robert, thank you for reaching out to me again and again on that. So I think at this point, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back to the board for any questions or comments. It's a pretty straightforward subdivision. We have our variance and we're hoping to get an approval tonight. One other thing I would like to discuss is the waiver in the staff report. Because this is just simply a 2-lot subdivision and we have relatively limited frontage on this, we never had considered that a sidewalk would have been requested on this. So I'm hoping the board can determine that the waiver is not necessary under section 4.07 of the regulations. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Tom. Members of the board, do you have any questions about this 2-lot subdivision?
Yes. Can you see me?
I can hear you.
Oh,
Nelson.
okay. Well, I have a question. The little stub roads that connect into this property, one off Greenleaf Street, one off J Road, and one off of Kurt Road, have those been established by survey as truly frontages for this lot? And I ask that because we have had experience where people years ago left stubs shown on their plans, and then they turned out they deeded away the property. And I just wanted to know whether these were as represented in this plan. They're shown as 50 feet each, and that's what they should be. And I just don't know for sure if they verified that those exist today.
Yes, they do, Nelson. Again, we did a boundary survey on this property because it had not had a complete boundary survey on it. There were pieces, including, Eric Street, Curtis, and Greenleaf. But yes, those exist now, though they are not connected to the property by a roadway. However, they are a paper right of way and they do exist.
They do exist. Okay. Somebody's put a private sign on one of them in case you don't know.
Yeah. But again, we do have a variance for the direct frontage of 150 feet. So I just wanted to bring that up because it's an interesting point. It's a cumulative frontage rather than a direct initial frontage.
I wasn't so worried about that as somebody looking to purchase this, obviously for a development, and thinking they had access through those points. And if those little stubs don't exist anymore for whatever reason, they would be greatly disappointed in us for approving a plan that shows something that isn't there.
Right.
That was my concern. Yeah. Okay.
Other comments or questions by board members? I can't see everybody on the screen at the same time, but no board members seem to have any comments. Okay, then let's open it up for any public testimony. For any abutters or interested citizens who wish to weigh in, I see one hand raised with the telephone number that ends in 757. If that individual would press *6, it will unmute you and you could offer your testimony. Please introduce yourself, give your address, and then tell us what's on your mind.
Hi, this is Nick Serpa from 20 Joey Road. I'm actually plot 49, abutting that. I just had a few questions. We didn't get a chance to ask at the zoning board meeting. So mostly for, I believe your name's Tom, that slice that is being made that's retained as that 11 acres, where does the top of that slice end? I can't really see on the map, and the video that we're seeing is a little slow.
Oh, it ends, you're talking about this area right here?
the video that we're seeing is about a minute delayed. So does it end at the parcel 49, which is ours, or property 50, which is our neighbors?
It's right at the lot line of between 50 and 51. So one
Okay.
lot, 2 lot removed from you.
Okay. So I appreciate the applicant's willingness to answer questions. This public comment period is for providing comments to the board. And if you'd like to extend us questions, if the board chooses to extend those to the applicant, we could do so. But it isn't for questions directly to the applicant.
Thank you.
So the question to the board then is just regarding, we are in the low area. So the concern for us as the property owners here is it is naturally that there's going to be, someone's going to purchase that property back there. I'm sure anyone can understand that that's the future of that land. The concern for us though is the water and the drainage. So that area behind us where we are in that low area does start to flood. And we are concerned that, someone comes on and develops that land and was to modify that land, that it would modify that water flow and the stream that we have in the back there, and the, how the water is handled and where that water settles. Obviously, we don't want to have our home and our backyard flooded due to some developer coming in at some point and modifying how that water is handled.
Very
how
good.
is that handled?
So part of that question has to be, or answer has to be put off until that future developer comes before the board with whatever their proposal is, because we're only responding to what's before us, which is the 2-lot subdivision. So I think the good news for you is that nothing will change in the short term with this 2-lot subdivision, because it's simply just not enough development to make any difference on the water flow. But in the future, when there's a proposal, you'll get notice as you did with this one. And we'll get to see what exactly is proposed, and to the extent that they've got to deal with drainage or runoff, we'll have their solution in front of us and we can judge what we think of it.
Okay, so this isn't going to give them carte blanche to just kind of go and some developer could purchase the property next month and, put up a bunch of houses and streets, and we wouldn't be notified again like we have been previously with the zoning board in this meeting.
You are correct about that. So somebody could buy the property, but if they did, or even if they didn't buy the property, a current owner could come forward and say, hey, I want to propose something else. And then they send out notices and they submit a plan, and we do it all over again with planning board review and zoning board review if there's variances that are needed. And you'll get notice of it, and we'll get to look at whatever they proposed and judge it for what it is. But no, they're not able to build anything more than one house on a lot, on each lot, with what they're asking for today.
And my last question is, with that slice being made over, one parcel from us, does that exclude us from having an abutters notice in the future?
To which property? Which property?
I don't think he's a direct abutter to the new lot.
No, he's not.
No. He'd be a direct abutter to the small lot, not the big one.
Correct.
And so he would not necessarily be a direct abutter. I think that if it's the will of the board, we could have that a condition of approval that a future developer of which 34-1 would have to include that lot as a noticed abutter.
I would be hesitant to do that now because if nobody walks in the door for say 20 years, that is very likely to get lost.
I don't disagree with that.
I think it would be fair for the board to make that assessment at the time a new application walks in, to look at the notices that were sent out, and then if there's any concern at that point about neighbors being slightly cut out like this one, that would be the appropriate time to deem somebody an abutter to get those people caught at that appropriate time.
I think Bob's right. I agree with you, Bob.
So I see what you're saying about it being lost over the course of years and then nobody knows what happened to it. At the same time, I don't know if it is that many years from now that the planning board would necessarily be tuned into wondering whether certain abutters were noticed and taking a view of which ones ought to be added to the mix. But there's got to be a way for us to tackle that for these fellows. They certainly don't deserve to be surprised by whatever comes forward, if there is one that comes forward on 34-1.
Certainly, I just don't know that there's a way to legally declare them as an abutter to a project that doesn't exist yet.
Nope, abutters are defined in statute, but we can certainly restrict or define who the applicant, if there's one that comes forward, has to notify.
Right.
Because we can require notifications of more than just abutters.
Yes, I just don't know that you can do it yet. That's all.
Well, we're doing it as part of, if we do it, we're doing it as a part of this project and saying a condition of its approval is a note goes on the plan that says whatever. Anyway, I'm not sure what's the will of the board with that, so I don't want to try and solve a problem that we didn't decide to tackle yet. The gentleman who's testifying, do you want to continue with your testimony and identify any other concerns you have?
Obviously, there's the concern of, obviously we all know that there's going to be some development at some point in the future, and that's understandable. I, just want to express as a property owner that, there is the concern for us over the increased traffic and, what that impact is for us, particularly with our property, is what the water is going to be. So we don't want to get in the way of, the people that own the property, doing what they please with the property. That's their property and their right to sell it, keep it, and so on. But we just want to make sure that those issues are addressed.
Okay. So if there is a subdivision application that ever comes forward on that property, other than a 2-lot or a minor subdivision like this one, then, they have their proposed roadways on there, and it's up to the board to consider if it would like to see a traffic study, which, typically we do at least on a minor level with an application. It depends on what's proposed. If someone said they're going to do 4 or 5 lots in there, we probably would have a comfort level with understanding what the traffic looks like. And if somebody said they're going to do 45 lots in there, that'd be different. But it's hard to guess as to what you'd require of them in the future when you don't know what they've proposed.
Yep, understood. Yeah, our major concern for us is that the water back there, as it's during heavy rains, it certainly starts us wondering the day that it has, double or triple that rain, that it's going to be worse. So.
Understood. I can offer my own sort of observation from being on the planning board for, oh, wow, it's been 11 years. Nelson, you've been like 50 years or something. So you're looking at me. What are you talking about? 11 years?
A long time.
Yeah. A handful of residential developments on a relatively large lot like this tends not to have a significant impact on drainage as it leaves the lot. They're required to sort of take that into consideration, but if you're putting certainly one house will make no measurable difference to anybody. Even if it's a handful, 4, 5, 6, something like that, you're still not talking about significant impact, or probably not even a measurable impact. Commercial developments where you pave the parking lot out in front of Shaw's, those are the kinds of things that will really have impacts on drainage for a situation like this. If they were doing streets and 40 homes or something like that, that'd be a different story where you'd have you want to see how they've designed the drainage for the place.
Understood.
What else can I help you with? Or what else would you like to share with the board?
No, I think that if you guys can put that provision in, and just that we get notified as we are in a butter, even though that new slice is in there, that would be satisfactory for us for now.
Okay, we're gonna have to think about exactly how to accomplish that, but I think there's support from the board to do it. Okay, so I see a second raised hand for the phone number that ends in 117. If you would press *6, you would unmute yourself and you could provide your information to the board, and please begin with your name and introduction. The phone number that ends in 117. There you go. You've unmuted yourself. Now please introduce.
Yes. My name is Patricia Marshall Dumont. My address is 26 Joey Road, and I am involved in the upper end of that subdivision as it's shown. And I do have, so I want to say thank you to the prior caller because a lot of my questions were answered. However, I do still want to just ask, at what point in the process would it be feasible for us to, given concerns about wildlife and the wooded area and what would be cleared and so forth. The general question would be, is there a way, and at what point would it happen, that we would be able to request some sort of a buffer between building, development, if it were to become, say, a 45 unit subdivision versus one home going in there? Would it be possible or reasonable to even ask to preserve some sort of a buffer between currently where we are on Joey Road and all around the perimeter, so that, it doesn't disturb wildlife and ecology and the integrity and character as much?
Okay, so Tom has got his plan up there and he's following along the edge of wetlands with his cursor very neatly for us. That element of a buffer, which isn't a legal buffer that says they can't invade it, it's a practical one. They can't build in the wetland. They can't go in there. They can't put roads in there. There's some very, very few opportunities to cross a wetland with a road if they don't have any other access, but they've got other access. So that serves as a huge buffer for you, which is, as I'm looking at it, hundreds of feet deep, with that in mind. Beyond that, it's very difficult to say specifics about what a buffer could be or might be in a future project because we don't have that project before us. Sometimes when you get a multi-unit development, they cluster the houses on one corner of the lot and leave a bunch of it for open space. That's a choice they make. If they want to make
Right,
that
and
choice,
that's
they
understood. So,
can.
just
And
to
if they choose to
clarify,
do that, they could. Go ahead.
absolutely, and I understand that. So just to clarify, what I am seeing on the screen, if you could have the gentleman run the cursor around where the wetlands are in relation to the property, and to clarify for you gentlemen, yes, those small stubs, as you referred to, are still in place. So I believe it would be Kurt Road and
J Road.
Is it J Road? Yes, those are still in place. So if you could show me with the cursor where that wetland protects, because I missed it.
Yep. So he was following the edge of wetlands. So yes, if you were to try to extend Kurt Road into this property, you would run right into wetland and you'd have all sorts of problems trying to get some permits from DES to do that. You probably wouldn't find a lot of support from this board. And from a practical standpoint for the applicant, it's hardly going to be cost effective to do that. That would be a very expensive way to enter into the property.
Okay, great.
Now,
for the purpose I'm seeing, it does look like that is directly behind my property, which is number 26, and the property beside me, number 28, which is the corner property on Kurt and Joey. Those look like that is wetland you're addressing behind those properties?
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, thank you so much for that. Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Now, I want to comment on one of the things that you talked about with respect to buffers. In if they were proposing single-family homes in a subdivision, there isn't necessarily a buffer requirement between like uses. You each have your setbacks from the property line, so nobody's going to build right up on your property line. Depending on which side of it is, it can be up to 60 feet for a rear lot setback in some zones. If you want to have trees or they want to have trees in their yard, that'll be a bit of a practical buffer, but there's no regulatory requirement for buffers between two different residential uses. I understand the desire everybody has to see the open space out there. And the applicant can certainly propose a version of an open space development, but there isn't any particular requirement that the applicant do so if he chooses to go in a different direction with that. It's one of those consequences that it's private property and it's subject to be developed.
Yep, understood. Well, thank you for being so open in your answers. And at this time, it seems as if there are no plans. One or the other two, I put one single home on that subdivision, or to further develop it themselves or to sell it. So once that becomes a plan in either direction, they would have to come before planning again, I would expect, and then we'd be notified once again.
Yes, although I want to be careful about one of the things you said. If they want to build one home on the new lot that doesn't already have a home in it, they don't need any more approval after tonight if they get approval tonight to be able
Right.
to do that.
Yes, that I understood. I probably didn't word it properly, but if they do proceed with one home, they're all set after tonight. If they plan to do something different or sell it to a developer, at that point it would come again before the board and abutters, plus hopefully Mr. I think it was Surfa at number 20 would be notified.
You got it. You are right.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for your time. We really do appreciate it.
Excellent. Okay, I see a hand raised with a telephone number that ends in 181. If that person would use *6 to unmute yourself and then introduce yourself and tell us what's on your mind.
Hi there. My name is Brian Fendel. I live at 28 Joey Road. I'm on the corner of Kurt and Joey. And I guess I'm a little late to the party because everybody else, the two previous callers, kind of addressed a lot of the things that I was thinking, but I figured I may as well, echo their sentiments. One being that, with the stream that runs behind my property, especially in the summertime, it gets kind of marshy back there. So, that was kind of a concern for me as far as drainage goes. And then also considering the impact on wildlife that, exists currently. And then the other big question that I had was access to the property off of Kurt Road, because that would be a big game changer for considering where my house is located. So just some concerns about traffic in the neighborhood and kind of being able to preserve the character as it is right now.
Yeah, very good. So with respect to that access off of Kurt Road, that's what we were just talking about a moment ago. Although that stub certainly touches the edge of the property, that's not even remotely practical to try to consider approaching a property through that wetland. I don't believe that the permits would be even possible with DES, and lots of good reason just to come in the other side. Within some of those things about impacts on wildlife and all of that, there are very little in terms of it. Very frequently, when folks have had the opportunity, the joy of having had some space undeveloped nearby, that there's wildlife there that you enjoy and you see out the back window and all that. There isn't any zoning or planning protection for those kinds of things because it's private property that the individual has a right to develop. There certainly are methods of development that the applicant could choose. None of that is before us tonight, though, and so I probably am already dove too deeply into going down that speculatory path.
Right. Yeah, and I'm aware that that's not truly the issue at hand, but obviously it's what's on a lot of our minds, abutting the property. But I appreciate you guys talking it through at least and giving us some insight about what we can expect looking forward.
Excellent. Anything else you'd like to share with us?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I do not see other raised hands. Justin or anyone else, do you see any that I'm overlooking?
I don't see any left on the list here.
Okay. So if there are no others who wish to weigh in, we'll close the public hearing. And Tom, do you want to speak to any of the things that you heard in the comments from abutters?
Yeah, I would, and I appreciate the abutters' concerns, particularly about Kurt Road and J Road too, for that matter. And Mr. Chairman, I would agree with you as an environmental scientist that accessing this property through Kurt or through J would be very problematic with the Wetlands Bureau. If there would be any through road in the future from Natticook, it would probably lead to Greenleaf, because there, although we have some slopes to deal with, there certainly aren't wetland impacts to the magnitude that would have to happen here. And of course, avoidance and minimization of impacts to wetland is a critical function right now. And, Mr. Chairman, I agree with you 100% that obtaining a permit to extend Kurt Road into the property would be extremely problematic, and I would not want to be part of that application.
I think that's a fair estimation.
Nelson understands that one.
Yeah. It's definitely a challenge to do.
Yeah,
okay.
That would not be fun.
Yeah. I know that there was quite a lot of concern about notifications for the if there ever is a forward one, and I am both aware of the concerns that Robert expresses with sort of how do you do that far in advance, as well as alerted to the applicant, or not the butter's concern that because this subdivision makes them not an abutter to 34-1, they would not be included in necessarily the count of abutters. What are your thoughts? Do you have any potential solutions for how to address that situation to make sure that lot gets noticed if there ever is a future proposal for 34-1?
I mean, that's the purview of the board, Mr. Chairman. If you wanted a condition that any further development of lot 2B 34-1 or whatever the number happens to be after we address this with the assessors, that the abutters to lot 2B 34 also be notified, that's not an issue. You know, I can tell the abutters that may be still listening that, you know, if there were significant development on the proposed remainder lot, you know, we're dealing with administering not only the local stormwater management regulations, but the alteration of terrain stormwater regulations, which are really very steep. So the possibility or the probability of increasing stormwater into that wetland complex is extremely remote. It would only happen via a mistake in calculations and so forth, because we are not allowed to release more water into the wetlands and off-site than currently exist in a pre-existing situation. So recharge and detention, you know, it's been around for a long time, but you know, it's so mandatory right now since early 2000s when we had the Mother's Day storm and the subsequent storms after that, that, you know, it's the regulations that the engineers have to go through now to detain and recharge stormwater is unbelievable. And as, again, Nelson knows, I've been in this business for 35 years. I've seen Nelson many times as chairman of this board. You know, we've seen a lot of changes, and stormwater management now is probably that, and wetland impacts. Those are the biggest permits that we have to. Honestly, I don't see it as a risk, but I certainly understand the abutter's position. And if the board chose to put a condition on that all abutters to 34 were notified for subsequent development of what's on the plan as 34-1, I have no issues with that.
Okay. I think that to Robert's concern, if that was a note that was on the plan, that would have to be one that if there was a development that comes forward, either the developer themselves identified it or some abutter identified it, because I don't think we could hold the staff responsible for going back and looking for those things.
I would agree with that, Mr. Chairman. You know, that becomes a records and research effort on the whatever engineer that would happen to be at the time. They have to review the reference plans and note the reference plans, and it would be, you know, ultimately their responsibility to follow through with that, and not necessarily planning staff. And that's, you know, that would mean that a surveyor would have to very carefully read this plan to see that note. And generally speaking, they do. You know, our surveyors, Ken Clinton, my partner, is extremely thorough at reviewing plans, record plans, and his staff. So I don't think that would be an issue. But you're right. It would be the responsibility of the subsequent developing engineer or developer's engineer to follow through with that condition.
And while I appreciate what the board and Mr. Carr has said, and I appreciate the intentions, and I think they're all good, from a staff perspective, and I did confirm this with Tim, we have no way to notify people who are not legally as an abutter as defined under state law until such time as a presentation comes forward and the board declares that these lots are impacted. So even all the notes in the world, even if they get missed, I have to go with what the state law says.
I do agree with Robert on this, and particularly my testimony about stormwater management. The probability that that lot would be impacted by future development is minuscule. And I don't think it's net, although I don't have a problem with the request, I agree with Robert's position on this.
The science of the impact to the wetlands or whatever is not the issue, because we don't know what that is. We don't know what the development is, and we don't know what solutions some engineer is going to come up with. And I'm confident in this. I've said 100 times that engineers can solve just about any problem if they put enough effort into it. So that's not the issue to me. It's that the abutter deserves the right to know. And we've got to figure out a way that we can make sure that that happens in a fair way with this. It's not about do we think that the science will be right or not? I'm pretty confident it will be. But the folks that are potentially affected have a right to know that it was before the board and to read it and have a say if they want to have a say. That's the solution that I want to get at. I don't know if I agree with the analysis that says that there's no way to provide the notice. If the planning board determines that it's a requirement, then it's a requirement. I'm trying to think about what's the easiest way to make that kind of a thing enforceable, because like the concern about it being lost, and if it is lost and somebody does what the statute requires and provides notice to those folks, and that's all, they've legally achieved what they're required to do until somebody finds that there was a condition of approval placed on a application in 2021.
You cannot.
They can come through if they want, Tom. It's okay.
Hold on, I'm gonna just drop my screen. It's my daughter. Hold on.
No worries. Do any of you have any other comments or questions for the applicant about the application in general? Hearing none.
Bob, you can't see it, but Bill's hand is raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bill. You weren't on my screen. I just only got 4 pictures at a time. What can I do for you, Bill?
I don't mean to get in the weeds, but I'm going to. Prior to this subdivision, did we classify this lot as 2B-34?
Yes.
Okay. Internally, Bob, how do we keep track of parcel 2B-34? Do we have a file? Do we have any type of a system that tracks all the parcels of every work that's been done on the parcel by any chance?
Yeah, we have records that are sorted by map and lot, so I'm sure we have stuff filed under 2B-34.
Okay, so a new file 2B-34-1 potentially is going to be created, correct?
Only when something is proposed on that lot.
Could we not anticipate that and put a copy of tonight's minutes into that folder, which is going to document the conversation that this planning board has had, which would serve as a note to those in the future of the conversation that occurred here on February 16th regarding the ability for the board to decide whether those two houses that are impacted by this subdivision get notice?
We could certainly put minutes in a folder. However, as Tim just chimed in as a text to me, we can't determine what an abutter to a property is without having a project before us.
I understand that, but the minutes can be provided to amplify the conversation that occurred here tonight in anticipation of what may come down the road as it relates to 2B-34-1.
I see what Bill's doing, and it makes sense.
And then it would give onus to whoever the board is. You know, it could be 20 years down the road. You know, I could be I may not be a member of the board 20 years from now, but whoever is, they can rely on staff to look at that folder to see the minutes from 20 years prior to say, we want these two lots to be considered being given notice for whatever's being proposed on this lot.
And yet another argument could say that those lots may not exist in that time either.
You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct.
No, I see what Bill's doing, and it makes a lot of sense. And knowing how our staff approaches these, we're not necessarily making it a condition. We're not specifying that something's in a butter when it doesn't meet the state law definition. All we're simply doing is leaving a trail of breadcrumbs that we know that staff would look at when if there's a folder that says, 2B34-1 and there's a set of minutes in there, anybody that comes across that is going to say, hey, this must be here for a reason. And that's all it would take for someone to bring it to an issue to say there was once a discussion that said certain things. Is that what you were after, Bill?
100%, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
If that
good. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, that does sound good to me. And I think it does kind of walk that line carefully between what can actually be expected to be effective in the future and, what the definitions of abutters and those sorts of things are. Are there other discussions about this 2-lot subdivision? If not, is there a motion that the board would like to make for a final disposition in any
Mr.
direction?
Chairman, I would move that the Merrimack Planning Board grant conditional final approval to the application with the conditions that are outlined in the February 10th, 2021 memorandum to yourself, Mr. Chairman, the Planning Board, from Casey Wolf, the Assistant Planner, and that furthermore, that a copy of tonight's minutes, once approved by the Planning Board, is placed into a file for parcel 2B/34-1 for the future board's consideration.
Is there a second for Bill's articulate
Second.
motion? Second by Neil Anketel. If there's no further discussion, let's have our roll call vote. Alistair, how do you vote?
I vote aye, Mr. Chairman.
Neil, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Bill Boyd?
Boyd votes aye.
Nelson Disco?
Aye.
Bob Best votes aye as well. 5-0-0. Thank
All
you,
right,
Tom, for that
great.
presentation.
Thank you very much for your time tonight. Have a good evening.
You too.
Tom, thank you. Be well, be safe.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Item number 6 on our agenda is 10 Henry Clay Drive LLC as the applicant and owner. Review for consideration of an amendment to a previously approved site plan regarding curbing and driveway design. The parcel is located at 10 Henry Clay Drive in the I-1 Industrial District, Tax Map 2D, Lot 4113. It's case Planning Board 2021-5. And Robert or Casey, is there anything that we need to know before we hear from the applicant?
This is a project that was conditionally approved by the board back in October, as you may remember. However, part of those conditions of approval were comments that were made by Public Works related to curbing that were called out in the previous site plan regulations that the project was subject to. The applicant is merely coming before the board tonight seeking to have the board eliminate that or those conditions of approval.
Excellent. Who's here for the applicant?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Chris Gaida with Fieldstone Land Consultants. And unfortunately, Chad couldn't be here. He has a prior meeting that he's engaged in at the moment. So I'll do my best to fill his shoes for a few minutes, and hopefully we can make this relatively short. As Robert mentioned, this application was approved a couple of years ago and recently amended for a sidewalk waiver and some lighting changes, which both were approved by the board. And at that time, they were waiting for comments from DPW. Unfortunately, when they weren't available when the board met, and afterwards those comments were given, DPW apparently was requesting for additional curbing to be installed in accordance with current regulations. However, the approval was approved with current regulations back when it was approved, if that makes sense. So essentially what we're asking for is either that the board reviews this and elects to remove condition number 3, which was that requirement, or entertains the waivers which were provided, which have the same results. Basically, we feel it would be a significant hardship for the landowner to have to redesign driveways and curbing and install that in accordance with current regulations. It just doesn't seem applicable really or fair, since the subdivision was approved previously under the old regulations.
I could go into a little more detail, but there isn't much more detail than that. But happy to answer any questions if the board has any.
Thank you for the presentation and the information. I can add to your presentation a conversation I had with DPW about their comment and their view of the driveway. The kinds of curbing that would be installed at the throat of a driveway would be there to affect stormwater runoff. And because of the topography and the layout of this lot, it would not have any significant function at all. That stormwater is not going to run onto the lot out of the road and doesn't need any curbing to keep it within the boundaries. And so DPW has no objection to the applicant's request for relief. With that in mind, does anybody else have questions for the applicant? Does anybody, let's see, we don't have to accept this because it's a modification. Are there any abutters or citizens who wish to weigh in? Seeing no hands raised. If the board doesn't have any questions or discussion, is there a motion that the board would like to make?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we agree to the changes in the approval, given that DPW has no objection to them.
Excellent. So is your motion to remove the conditions or to waive the condition that was previously required? I don't think it matters which procedure,
Yeah,
but
I don't care.
Okay, so let's remove the conditions from the previous approval. Is there a second for Alistair's motion?
Second motion. Oh, give it to Neil. Give it to Neil.
Sorry,
All right.
Neil.
Neil's got the second.
Okay, Neil.
We'll reserve the next one for Bill if he wants it. Okay, motion and a second. If there's no discussion, and Alistair, how do you vote?
I vote aye, Mr. Chairman.
Bill Boyd.
Boyd votes aye.
Neil Anketel.
I vote aye.
Nelson Disco.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. 5-0-0. Thank you very much for waiting, and that
you.
one was a nice quick one today.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody.
You're welcome. Thank you. Item 7 on our agenda is Kodiak Veterinary Hospital LLC as the applicant and Karen Roy as the owner. Review for acceptance and consideration of final approval for a 2,224 square foot building addition and change of use to a veterinary clinic. The parcel is located at 255 Daniel Webster Highway in the I-1 Industrial and Aquifer Conservation Districts, Tax Map 3D2, Lot 39. It is Case Planning Board 2021-6. Robert or Casey, is there anything that we need to know before we hear from the applicant?
I don't have anything for the board. I'll let the applicant continue with their presentation and I can answer questions if you need them.
Okay, so in reviewing the staff's memorandum, what I saw in here is a question about site lighting, and that if we believe that the applicant should provide additional lighting, then there isn't a plan submitted to do so, and we could potentially determine that the application is therefore not complete. Or we could alternatively think that the lighting is fine the way it is, in which case the application would be complete. I get that right?
I have a third one for you. I submitted a landscape plan for about 3 o'clock today that I would put to the board that meets the requirement. Obviously, this will be then reviewed and stuff like that. We wanted to use the existing lighting on the building. However, I don't know what the bulbs and stuff are in that at the current time. So to tell you guys tonight, it would be enough. I didn't feel it was that. So I put this plan together. And as we go through the review, we're going to find out what the size of those, what the luminaires of those bulbs are and stuff like that, and modify this lighting plan. But now you have a lighting plan that meets your requirements to be accepted for the application.
Okay, so that takes away the question of complete. Whether we want to add more light or not, we can deal with that later. We've got a lighting plan. With that in mind, does any member of the board have questions of the applicant with respect to what information you would need for completeness? Frankly, we didn't even let Matt have a kind of a general presentation. You want to give us a general overview, Matt, of what we're doing?
Yes, absolutely. Again, good evening, Matt Peterson, Keach Nordstrom. Here represent Kodiak Vet Clinic for the redevelopment of 255 Daniel Webster Highway. Currently, this is existing building sits on Daniel Webster Highway. We have Star Drive that runs at this location here. We have existing parking spaces throughout the site. Unfortunately, a majority of those parking spaces on the existing conditions plan are within the DW highway right away. So we had to we have to deal with that as far as the application. But what we'd like to do, we went to the zoning board, got a variance to be able to construct this building within 19 feet of the front property line. So we're looking to basically square off the building, add a half second story to the building. Approximately 3,850 square feet is what we'd like to do. We'd like to remove the parking spaces that are in the right of way. We do not need a variance now because we meet all the requirements there. And as I go through the site plan application, you'll see we've got plenty of parking spaces based on your requirements. The requirement's about 8, we've got 20 or so for that. So we'd like to redevelop the site. And to make that happen, a couple things we have to go through. As I said, we need to remove the pavement in this location here. We need to remove some of the existing landscaping around the building here and here to allow for the addition. The building, I think most of you have probably driven down here. Sorry, I'm gonna jump around. We've got substantial landscaping here on the other side. This is one of the places we're gonna square off, and then the other side square off there. So from a site plan, that's pretty much it on the removals. As we get to, like I said, we're gonna keep the existing parking spaces at this location here. There's 7. We're gonna put a handicap space, and you see everything's kind of funky with the lines. We're not proposing to change that right now. They're out there, so I made this oversized as well as the handicap space is oversized. We were just using the space that's out there today. As part of this facility, these guys are currently in a strip plaza in Hudson right now. They sit right here, is what one of their uses is here. And I just kind of give you an overview of the site that's here. Their use is kind of sitting right here in the facility. Again, I want to make sure the board understands this is not a doggy daycare. This is a vet clinic. So obviously all different types of animals will be coming to this site that they take care of. They do want to do a screened in area that would be with vinyl fencing that we call an animal area, also in the back here. And again, that's, I mean, I think you've seen most of these people. I have one in Henniker that when the dog comes up or an animal, it's probably not in the best. It's not looking to go run around in a play yard, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's obviously might need to relieve itself or that type of stuff. And that's why we're proposing those 2 locations that are there. We will have access on DW Highway as it exists today and keeping the other access on Star Drive as it exists today. We did propose landscaping in the area that we were moving the pavement. I also proposed some landscaping around the back of the parking lots. And then we have existing landscaping that's around the existing facility and stuff like that that we would like to keep. And the rest of it is just the detail sheets that we've gone through. You guys are pretty standard on that. I'm not going to get into the drainage and the traffic stuff. That's all going to be reviewed by the review engineers. If you guys have any comments, you know, for us when we get to the next hearing, I'm more than happy to address those. But you know, again, it's a change of use. I've been trying to piece this together on the fly, so I believe everything's there. I know Robert's got a couple things that I've got to put together here or there, but I think it's a pretty clean application and really nice reuse of this building down in this location here. That's it for my presentation. I'm going to keep it short and let you guys ask me questions. And also, Andy Perlman's with me tonight, who can answer any questions, and the 2 owners are also online with us as well. So we have all of us here.
Excellent, Matt. Thank you very much. Thank you to the applicant. Board members, do you require any more information to decide that the application is complete? If not, is there a motion that the board would like to make? Somebody make one.
I have a question. The engineering review, the drainage review and all of that, you said has been submitted. We haven't seen that, but it's in review by our consulting engineers. Is that where that is? Did I understand that right?
Yeah, that's right. And the recommendation from staff is that we accept and then continue. Well, accept now that we've solved this lighting question.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think I've been submitting too many applications to you guys and I'm bogging down the engineers there.
Could well be. We need a bigger consulting engineer.
No. That costs more.
Bigger, faster one.
I will make a motion to accept this plan as submitted.
It's a motion to accept the application as complete. Is there
As
a
complete, right?
Seconded, Mr. Chairman.
second by Counselor Boyd? If there's no further discussion, then let's vote. Alistair, how do you vote?
I vote aye, Mr. Chairman.
Neil Anketel, how do you
I
vote?
vote aye.
Bill Boyd?
Boyd votes aye.
Nelson Disco?
Aye.
Bob Best votes aye as well. So that's 5-0-0 to find the application complete. Let's see. Is there any other further? Oh, Bill, you've got a hand up. Have at it.
I have a couple of questions. Matt, is the owner the doctor, the veterinarian?
Yes,
Oh, perfect. And Dr. Roy is on the line?
she is.
Okay, wonderful.
No,
Oh,
excuse
she
me.
not? Oh, she wasn't.
No, Ms. Roy is the owner. Dr. Masuma Barrett is the
Oh, Dr.
applicant.
Barrett. Okay, I apologize.
That's okay.
Okay, so Dr. Barrett is here then.
Yes.
Okay. This will be a slight shameless plug. As somebody who runs sled dogs and who's been out to Alaska, I am thrilled of the name of Kodiak Veterinary Hospital. I think it's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. I have to give a shameless plug there, Dr. Barrett. I think that's a great choice of names. The couple questions I have is this going to be a 24-hour facility?
No.
Okay.
Normal business hours.
Okay. Is there going to be, obviously, with me having dogs, I've actually had dogs undergo surgery and been kept overnight. Is there going to be a facility for the veterinarian to monitor any animals that may need overnight care? Is there going to be a place with like a separate room for a cot or what have you?
I believe so, but I would defer to Dennis or Masuma
Okay.
on that.
Yeah, I can answer that. This is Dennis with Kodiak Veterinary Hospital. I am alone actually at the current location of Kodiak Veterinary Hospital. That photo you see behind me is Kodiak, who the hospital is named after. No, we do not do 24-hour care or overnight care of patients. If a patient is needing that level of monitoring, we do refer to one of the area emergency facilities. With that
Okay, so basically you would be like a PCP for dogs and cats and birds and that kind of thing.
That's correct. Dogs, yes.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to leave it at that. I lost my other question. I apologize, doctor. Yeah, I apologize. The one other question I had is in looking at the architectural prints, the blue building with the black. I absolutely love it. I love the different contours to it. Can you, and this is just me trying to keep with kind of a New England kind of feel to it. Did you contemplate putting some shutters at strategic locations next to the windows on your building?
You know, I'm not opposed to it. At this point, we were just looking to get some elevation so you could see what we were proposing.
Okay.
We are fine going with a more classic New England look.
For me personally, especially when you're coming north past AB, and like as Matt alluded to, it's a great, that location's great for redevelopment. I think it would be very dramatic if you kind of highlighted some of the New England farm type structures that we've had. You know, we have one gentleman in the center of town who has a yellow building that kind of draws into that particular New England theme. But regardless, I love the color. I love the concept. It's dramatic, and the sight lines I imagine will be nice once it's brought built up and brought out on the property. So I'm very happy with what you're proposing to do.
Thank you. We do take pride in kind of the way we look and present ourselves, so I welcome that feedback. Just a point for the record, I'm Dennis Barrett. I'm the hospital director. Masuma Barrett is actually the doctor, so I'm not the doctor.
I apologize, Mr. Barrett.
Oh, quite okay.
Thank you for that introduction. Other board members, have any questions?
And Kodiak is the dog, correct?
Kodiak is the dog.
Okay,
She
good deal.
inspired Dr. Barrett to become a vet.
Wonderful.
So
I like to hear that. So
This is Masuma. This is Masuma Barrett. I don't know if I can.
We
speak
can
in
hear
here.
you. Yes, you can, of course.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to thank you for allowing us the time to present this.
I generally try not to talk because I'm rather shy in front of people and not in an exam room. So I apologize. I keep Dennis in front of me to do all the talking. I apologize.
No worries, you're doing fine. And assuming that all goes well with your application, I think welcome to Merrimack will definitely be in order. Nelson, you have a hand up.
Yes, I do. I wanted to comment on the particular slide that's on the view graph right now. The building, I like Bill's suggestion to put some shutters on it. I think it would make it look more New Englandy. But what's missing to me there is some kind of landscaping in front of that building. The landscaping shown on the plan is off to the side and around and back a little bit, but there's nothing in front. And I think it would be appropriate to have some sort of shrubbery as decor along the highway in front. And the other question was there's a shed shown in the dog walkway in the back on the right rear of the property. And that little shed, is that meant to be left there or is that to be removed?
I guess that would be up to you, Dennis. I left it on there not knowing what you guys wanted to do with that or not at the point.
Yeah, it's there. It's in decent condition, so we did plan to keep it for storage.
Yeah. Okay.
In terms of the landscaping in the front, I'll leave that to Matt if he's got specific comments, but from a personal point of view, I'm a gardener, so I don't like the idea of just a plain front either. I would want to bring character to the building with the use of landscaping.
Well,
and I'll say I wasn't happy with my landscape architect when I saw this before I was presenting tonight. So I'd agree with Nelson and with Dennis there. I think there's some plantings around the foundation that are already mature too, that if we put a note to remove those and reestablish those would be nice on there too. So, you know, I agree with both and I'll make sure that'll be on my list next time and I'll make sure Robert's got the same list.
All right. Okay. Otherwise, looks good.
Thank you.
Okay. Other board members with comments or questions? What's the will of the board or what's the board's thoughts on this idea of lighting? And there's some existing lighting that's out there. I know we don't know what the lumens are and we're going to find out some more information later. Generally speaking, if there's been reasonable light out there in the past, I suspect it's pretty good odds that it's going to suit the needs for, you know, what's going to happen with the veterinary clinic.
Just so you know too, to add on to that, Robert, this is what I said here. We've got a wall pack up here. I've got a light that's here. I've got another wall pack that sits up here. And then that's that one that's there. And then the other side, there's another wall pack up here and there. And again, I just didn't know what the watt is yet. So I'm going to get those and we'll put that on the plan, which I think might be enough to carry the parking lot, but there may be one extra one needed or something like that.
Yep. It seems like all of the additions to the building are away from the parking lots where they won't interfere with the existing lighting or cause any issues with it. I certainly I've never been on the site before. I don't know if it was well lit or dark before as it was used, but I think there's a reasonable basis to think that if it was working before, it's probably going to be fine now. Does any board members have any disagreement with that? Any familiarity with the site or different view?
Mr. Chairman, I would. Go ahead, Nelson. Go ahead.
Okay, I would say let's look at it. And we've also going to look at the drainage too. We don't know where the water is going from this site. And I think that ought to be looked at.
That's part of peer review. So that's standard. There's this one question about lighting with the plan because there wasn't a plan in there until we got to tonight.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Well, we haven't seen the drainage either. And I don't know if I expect they can handle it on this site.
Bill, what's your comment?
I was just going to say, Mr. Chairman, you know, what Matt and the applicant are proposing is a dramatically different type of use than what was previously at the site. So I think I would prefer to see what Matt can come up with after he does his own analysis regarding the lighting and the drainage and put it on paper so that so the board can make a better determination. I think that it makes better sense to see it as one complete picture.
Yeah, no, I wasn't suggesting that we wouldn't see it. I was trying to give Matt any early indication that we could, whether there was need for additional new lights that he should design into his plan or not.
Well, what I'm saying is let Matt make the determination. If he feels he can get away with what he has, great. If he doesn't, he's going to present something and say, you know what, I gotta put a light here and a light here to be able to meet the standards of the plan of Merrimack's regulations.
And just so the board understands, that's exactly what I did because I did not know the levels of these lights. I put two parking lot lights to light it up so that I meet requirements. What I'm saying is we might be able to move these out if these are strong enough. So yes, I hear everything you're saying. And then also Nelson, just so you know, this was designed, we did a drainage study and all that. We have 2 leaching catch basins on the property. We did a drainage report that's going to, staff to be reviewed and stuff like that. So when they all come back with comments, I'll outline all that to you guys and stuff like that and walk you through. But we did submit everything as a normal package and it's just hasn't been reviewed yet.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you.
Excellent. Other comments or questions? Are there any abutters or interested citizens who wish to weigh in? Robert or name just went blank. Casey, can you locate? There was an email that was sent from an abutter that was in support of this that should make it into the record. I don't have it at my fingertips. Do you?
I have it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Bill, you want to read that one into the record?
If I can, yep, I got it right here. Hold on a second. Mr. Chairman, this is an email dated Thursday, February 11th, 2021 at 2:42 p.m. directed to Robert Price from Doreen Wynot, who is the proprietor for Animal Care Center of New Hampshire, LLC. And it reads, Dear Merrimack Planning Board members, I own and operate Animal Care Center of New Hampshire at 257 Daniel Webster Highway. My business is directly across from Star Drive from the proposed Kodiak Vet Center. I fully support Kodiak becoming my neighbor. I spoke with Dr. Masuma Barrett about 3 months ago. We both believe our respective businesses will complement each other. I can't argue with that. I have no concerns with the site plan application. I ask that the board please vote in favor of Kodiak Vet Center. Thank you. Doreen Wynot, Animal Care Center of New Hampshire, LLC.
Excellent. Thank you for reading that, Bill. And it's always very nice when we have supportive neighbors who want to offer their positive help to folks.
Absolutely.
Were there any other written correspondences received? Casey?
No, I'm currently checking on that. I was disconnected from my remote desktop, so it would take me about 30 seconds to confirm that.
Okay. Certainly chime in once you do. I don't remember you guys forwarding them to me, and you guys diligently have done so through the years. So I don't suspect that there is. But with that, since there's no other abutters who wish to speak, we'll close the public hearing, subject to any additions that Casey may come across. With that in mind, the recommendation from staff, and it seems that the applicant is on board with it, is that the board would continue this application to a future meeting to allow all of our peer review information to come back to us and let us use that information plus some of the things the applicant is committed to accomplishing for us. Are we at that point, or is there additional discussion to have? I don't hear any discussion. So if we're at that point, are we aiming for our March 2nd meeting or the later in March, would it be 16th meeting?
Staff recommended the 16th.
We'd like to go to the 2nd if it's possible. They have a closing date in March. I know it's on me and it's going to be tight, but as long as I have the review back, it's a pretty small site. I understand it's tight timeline, but just with the closing dates and stuff, we'd like the 2nd if that's possible.
Mr. Chairman, we are indeed under contract in a very tight timeline with the seller, and we've already had one extension so far. So if possible, we would appreciate being heard on the 2nd.
Robert, I think if the staff can manage it, I don't see any reason the board would object to aiming for the 2nd. And does that sound reasonable? Robert, you still there?
Yeah, so escrow was established by the applicant the end of last week. Fuss and O'Neill has 10 days to review the plan, so we're not expecting comments until the end of next week. That would give 0 prep time for the staff to do any review at all for a memo update of that application.
All right.
So we would hold firm to the 16th.
Okay. Matt, I'm certainly going to leave the door open for you to discuss it with us, but it's hard to argue with what Robert's saying if he's not going to have any time as a staff to take a look at this and provide us his feedback. We're going to be kind of handcuffed as a board when we sit down to know what it is that the peer reviewers gave us.
Can I offer this? Could we continue to March 2nd and come next Thursday? If I don't have stuff back to Robert, I give him a letter to continue it to the 16th.
Well, it's not just your stuff. It's the Fuss and O'Neill report that he's got to get
No,
back.
no, that's what I'm saying. If I'm assuming Fuss and O'Neill might get to me tomorrow, the next day, Friday of this week or Monday, and I can get stuff back to him by next Thursday. If I don't get it, then I just write him a letter and say, we'd like to be continued to the 16th based on not getting the information back yet.
So Robert, if you had all of their materials, including the Fuss and O'Neill report by next Thursday, would that be achievable for you?
That's
I don't want to commit to that because that would, assuming the end of the day, that would give barely a couple hours Friday morning for us to rush through and put something together. I really don't feel comfortable doing that.
Okay. All right. I think, Matt, it's tough to give you the second as much as we're trying to, and I understand the reasoning for wanting to do it. It seems like it just doesn't give us enough time to have the results back from the peer review engineers to be able to do that. So, what's that?
We'll figure it out.
All right. I appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Sure, of course.
Do we expect to have other department reviews in by then, like DPW and fire, for example?
Typically, they're faster than the peer review engineers, and they're not the holdup on these things. So I would say yes.
Yeah,
and
we actually. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Casey.
We actually did get some comments back. Unfortunately, this memo was finalized before the comments for fire, building, and DPW came to our department. They might have just came in this morning, so we didn't have a chance to review those, but those are available.
Okay, great. Well, thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so if there's no more substantive discussion to be had at this one, it is appropriate for the board to take up that motion to continue with the staff's firmly held recommendation that it be March 16th.
So
What's
moved,
the
Mr.
will of the
Chairman.
board? Moved by Bill Boyd. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Nelson Disco. Alistair, how do you vote?
I vote aye, Mr. Chairman.
Neil Ancetto, how do you vote?
Vote aye.
Bill Boyd?
Boyd votes aye.
Nelson Disco?
Aye.
Bob Best votes aye as well. 5-0-0. Thank you, Matt, for the presentation. And I regret that we weren't able to accommodate the goal for the March 2nd. It just won't seem to work out for us, but I really wanted it to. And I hope that doesn't put too much of a strain on your effort. So
we'll figure it out.
All right.
I appreciate your time, guys, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the proposal and the development. I think that Kodiak will be a great addition to town once we get through the process. So
thank you all very much.
It's a nice upgrade to the building as well. It'll be nice to see.
Yep.
Okay, we've finally reached item 8 on our agenda, which is RCL Realty LLC as the applicant and owner review for acceptance and consideration of final approval of an amendment to a previously approved subdivision. The parcels are located on Elizabeth Drive, Squires Drive, and Charles Road in the R1 and R2 residential districts. Tax map 3A, lot 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 25, 26, and 27. Case Planning Board 2021-07. And as I mentioned at the beginning of a meeting, there is a very late coming request to continue this item because of pending peer review.
So I will just echo that, or I'll add to that request. I believe March 2nd in this applicant's case would be acceptable. We did receive Fuss and O'Neill comments now, so we do have them. And this afternoon, sorry, not this afternoon, but I did talk to Dawn this afternoon. She is hoping to get us review comments as well on this project. So I believe a March 2nd date would make sense for this one. I see Matt's got his hand up. So
Matt, what you got?
Could I request that be on the March 16th as well? It's not just for me being there, but it's also the fact that Greg Michael's the one who asked me to continue this tonight. And I know he wants me to address the comments that came in from President O'Neill before I go back to you guys. So what you just said about 255, even if I take care of the comments that I got today or last Friday afternoon, you get them back to you Friday or Monday next week. By the 2nd, Robert's not going to have time to look at it. He's just not. And I know that Greg would like me to have those addressed, or 90% of them addressed. And yes, it would be one meeting for me.
Okay.
Fair enough.
No worries. Fair enough. So March 16th is the applicant's request. Does the board have any questions about this application? If not, then is the board prepared to take a motion?
So moved to March 16th.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Mr. Chairman.
Second to continue. Second by Nelson Disco to continue to March 16th, 7 p.m. No further notice to abutters. Alistair, how do you vote?
I vote aye, Mr. Chairman.
Neil, how do you vote?
Vote aye.
Bill Boyd.
Boyd votes aye.
Nelson Disco.
Aye.
Bob Best votes aye. 5-0-0. All right, Matt, we had you 3 of them tonight, huh? 3 or 4, huh?
That's 3, only 3
3.
here. Yeah, 2 tomorrow night.
Still a busy night. I will not see you tomorrow night. So
Really? Not up in Concord?
no, I've got a charter school, but the chair of the Concord Planning Board also works for my firm.
I will be spending all night with them tomorrow. You guys have a great night.
All right. Tell him I said hi. Tell
Have a good
Rich
week.
said hello.
You too, Bill.
Okay. That brings us to discussion, possible action regarding other items of concern. What is the will of the board? Do you have any items of concern to discuss? Nelson.
I do, just a quickie. One thing that was missing tonight, and I didn't notice till I noticed it while I was reviewing, was we used to get with our package, when we had a variance granted by the ZBA, that we would get a copy of that, of what they varied, and their motions and so on. It was minutes of the meeting or whatever that gave the results of their granting the variance. And I'd like to continue to see those. Sometimes they're important, sometimes they're pretty straightforward, but sometimes there's nuances buried in there that I would like to see. So, Robert, I don't know if I see you're shaking your head in the right direction, but thanks. If we can get that in the future.
Absolutely. Yep.
I would appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, sounds good. So when there's a variance on the file, then the actual decision letter, is that what you want, Nelson?
I was leaning more to minutes. I think he's looking for that.
Yeah, more minutes, more the discussion that went behind it, or the thinking that went into granting those variances. Thank you.
Yeah, Nelson's right. Historically, we've always gotten, for whatever is applicable for what we're talking about, looking at what the thought process was at the ZBA. So Nelson's correct.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, so minutes or just minutes, not the decision letter. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. Anything else that people would like to have on their discussion items? All right, seeing none, then we are at the point in our agenda to take up the approval of the minutes of January 19, 2021.
Mr. Chairman, I move the Merrimack Planning Board virtual meeting minutes of Tuesday, January 19th, 2021 with the following changes.
Go ahead.
Page 2. Line 24. It's Councilor, not Councilor. I certainly would love your law degree, Bob, to earn that, but I don't have one.
Yeah, so you're a C counselor.
I'm a C counselor, not an S counselor.
Which line was that? Line 24.
Line 24.
24.
Yeah, you're the other kind of counselor several other times in there.
Yes, I am.
All right.
And then
Anything else?
And then on page 5, line 4, where it says copies of these emails are available. Have we always done that with our minutes? Because I've always thought we've entered correspondence as a matter of record.
Let's see. So we certainly do, as a usual course, read emails into the file if they're not too long and if they're not
Right.
inflammatory. It doesn't, I don't think that we've always done it that way, or that's
Okay.
the only way that's been appropriate. I think we have at times simply accepted them into the record for different reasons. I don't recall what our thinking was at this time in terms of what not reading them and just accepting them.
Okay, fair enough.
I believe they were read at the meeting, but instead of retyping them from scratch, that was the point, is referencing that they are here.
Okay, so they were read into the record, they're just not reproduced in the minutes.
Or at the very least, one of them may not have been. So I think the one from Mr. Parkhurst was read because I don't believe he attended the meeting. However, the ones from the Uteros may not have been read because they were in attendance at the meeting and kind of reiterated it. So I think that may be a part of the thinking too.
We should at some point, maybe in one of our organizational meetings, think about what our standard approach should be to reading written correspondence into the record. I can say from observing other organizations and boards that do this, there is some variability to it based on the length, the repetitiveness of it, and the potential that there may be inflammatory material contained therein, where certain circumstances would have you not read them. But reasonably often you'd read them into the record. I think the key is that all board members get a chance to experience it, whether it's by having it read at the meeting or having it sent to you in your package, so that you can consider it for your decision making. But it does make sense to have kind of some guideline or structure to how we do that. Other items in the minutes?
That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second for approval of the minutes?
I will second.
Second by Nelson Disco. Does anyone else have any minutes changes? Then let's do a roll call vote to approve these minutes. Alistair, what do you say?
I vote aye with the changes, Mr. Chairman.
Neil Anketel, what do you got?
I vote aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Bill Boyd.
Boyd votes aye.
And I vote aye as well. 5-0-0 to approve those minutes. That concludes all the business on our agenda. And so we have arrived at the moment where we would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr.
So
Chairman.
moved by Mr. Disco, seconded by Mr. Boyd. Alistair.
I vote aye, Mr. Chairman.
Nelson.
Aye.
Neil.
I vote aye.
Bill.
Boyd votes aye.
I vote aye as well. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for participating in the meeting. And we got through a relatively rigorous agenda here in just a handful of hours. So good work. And
Merrimack TV is committed to our community. From gavel-to-gavel coverage of town and school board meetings to updates on town services and projects, we aim to keep you connected.
Good morning, I'm Kyle Fox, Public Works Director for the town of Merrimack.
Hi, I'm Diane Trippett. I'm the town clerk tax collector for the town of Merrimack.
I'm Captain Matt Tarleton with the Merrimack, New Hampshire Police Department.
And keep the public informed of every motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
And many moments, so you can be confident that we're here for you. Thanks for watching. Stay connected. Follow Merrimack TV on Facebook.